What's up, everybody? Welcome to Touchdown Texas, episode 35. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, and my co-host here, Nick Rodriguez. We want to start out by giving a congratulations to Texas softball in the College World Series final. We don't know who they're going to play yet, but best of luck to the girls. Baseball, we also want to give a hats off. Amazing season. Unfortunately, falling short to UTSA. But Nick, how's it going?
I'm great, man. Excited to talk some football, but also very excited to talk about the softball team that is in the finals. We're either going to play OU or Texas Tech. We'll find out later tonight. And then, baseball, it's tough. One of the better seeds lost, but not the only top seed. Vandy lost, Georgia's out, Clemson's out. So it's tough to see them lose early, especially at home. But we'll be back next year. And meanwhile, cheer on some softball starting Wednesday night.
Definitely. Wednesday night, the finals. Longhorn Nation's going to tune in. So this episode, we're going to talk about the 21st century best players in college football. We're going to talk about the top transfer players, the coaches, where they rank the top coaches in the college football. Where does Sark rank? And do we agree with that? Stay tuned for that. But before we get started, I wanted to say follow us at touchdown_Texas on our social media channels. And be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Go back and watch our previous content. We're less than 100 days, ladies and gentlemen, from college football. Like 12 Saturdays left as we're recording this on June 2nd. So this is off-season content. An interesting list came out. The top 25 players, this is overall in the 2000s. Cam Newton came 1. Reggie Bush came 2. Ndamukong Suh came 3. Joe Burrow 4. Lamar Jackson 5. Ed Reed 6, and VY 7. So let's start with VY. Is he ranked appropriately on this list?
Man, it's tough. I mean, I'm glad he got at least the top 10 love. Go back to the top 5 real quick. Let's take a look at that. See if he would go over any of those guys. I don't have him. I don't mind him being below Cam. I don't know if Cam is my number 1. Reggie at 2, Suh at 3. He was just so impactful on the defensive side of the ball. But to me, I think VY is a top 4 guy somewhere along this list. Joe Burrow is probably my 1 just because where he was in his career at Ohio State, bouncing up at LSU, and obviously winning a national title on one of the greatest teams. I think he'd be number 1. Reggie and Ndamukong somewhere in that top 5. But VY to me, he beat Reggie Bush, so he's got to be above him. And then Cam Newton does round out my top 5, pushing Lamar a little bit further down to maybe that 7th spot. Lamar was fantastic, but no championship. Everyone else on that list, other than Ndamukong Suh, has a championship. But Ndamukong Suh was just an all-time great player, one of the few defensive players to ever be a finalist for the Heisman. So he definitely deserves being in the top 4. So just to clarify, it'd be Burrow 1, probably Bush or VY. I can't make up my mind there. And then Suh after that, and then Cam 5th. I mean, all-time iconic players, cool players, video game players, especially Reggie. But yeah, I think VY is being a little overlooked here, a little.
He is. So if I had to switch, I agree with Cam Newton 1, Reggie Bush 2. They should be the top 2. Just impact and winning the
Heisman. Yeah.
Exactly. So they should be the top 2. I would actually put Suh at number 5 just because he is a defensive tackle. He doesn't play the premium position like quarterback. And I would switch VY with Lamar Jackson.
So we agree on that.
Yeah, we agree with that. So it'll be Cam Newton 1, Reggie Bush 2, VY 3, Joe Burrow 4, and Suh at number 5.
Oh, okay.
You could switch VY and Joe Burrow, but VY, what separates him from these, besides Cam Newton, is he had the running aspect. He was a really, really good runner, and he made some clutch plays. That 4th down against USC, even during the season, that clutch, against Michigan, Ohio State, he was big when the moments mattered the most. And I loved the impact he had on this Texas Longhorns team. Even though the team around him was talented, he uplifted that talent. So VY would be number 3 for me because he's a legend in college football. And how he didn't win a Heisman still baffles me to this day, and it baffles a lot of Longhorns fans. But I don't want to make it seem like I'm ragging on Lamar Jackson. Even though his Louisville teams never made it to like a semifinal or championship game, he was really, really good player. Remember that game against Florida State when he hit that long run and he spun
Yep.
off like three or four defenders? Lamar Jackson was a really good player. I just think that he was not as good of a thrower as he was a runner. But Sue was so dominant. We got lucky in that Big 12 championship game that Colt threw the ball and it was 1 second left, so we were able to kick the game-winning field goal, and that
Hmm.
was Sue. That
Yeah.
he was unwatched. Colt was poised. Still probably has nightmares to this day seeing the Sue because he was such a good player and a dominant player. He was unblockable even if he had double teams on him. So I think that he should be in this top five, but I think he should be from 3 to 5. So Nick, so who would be? And you may have said it, but Joe Burrow, who would be your number 2 player?
It was between Reggie and Vince. I'll go Reggie at the 2, Vince at the 3. I mean, I originally had Vince at the 2, but Reggie was just so iconic. He had the flips into the end zone against Stanford, Notre Dame. He was a classic. He won multiple national championships. He was easily the best college football player. So I would have him 2, Vince 3, and then you can fill in with Cam and Sue there. And I had Lamar falling a little bit further down for the same reasons as you have.
That's fair.
6 through 10 is interesting here. Ed Reed, Vince, Tebow, Travis Hunter, who just got drafted, obviously, and then Terrell Suggs. What are your thoughts on 6 through 10?
I love Travis Hunter. I just don't know if he should be on this list because he was such an impact player. Maybe just because he was one of the first players that's gone 2 ways, so maybe they're accounting for
Won a
that.
Heisman.
He won the Heisman, but what did they win at Colorado? Ed Reed won a championship. Vince Young won a championship. Tim Tebow, forget about what you think about him. He won a championship. Terrell Suggs, I don't have that much recollection of him playing in college football. Not going to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you about that. So, but again, Travis Hunter, he was a high impact player, but I don't think his impact led to enough winning. But what do you think about that?
I tend to agree with that. I think the other thing that I'm thinking about here too is this a list about college players, which clearly it is, because if you go NFL, Burrow, Lamar would probably lead the charge on that, right?
Exactly.
Terrell Suggs would be higher on that list if you're considering his NFL production, and maybe they are a little bit just because Suggs was a great player. I didn't really know him at Arizona State. We were a little young in that area too, but obviously he became a force with the Baltimore Ravens, and I don't think he'll be a Hall of Famer. Is he? But he'll be close. My point is more know him more for the NFL. Maybe that's what they're betting on with Travis Hunter. He is a recent player. I feel like a lot of these polls and stuff, they want to have a guy that's more recent, gets more debate out of it. The interesting one to me is Tebow. If this came out in 2011, Tebow would have been, and they had Tebow 8, there would have been a fire because he's too low. But it's interesting looking at him years later, and they still have him top 10, which I think is right and respectable. He should be in the top 10. But if this was done right after he was done playing, I think there'd be a big clamoration for him to be in the top 5. I don't agree with that, but it was Tebow mania that it's interesting to see where he is now this many years after his career.
I agree, and there's some old heads that that deserve to get some love. Like, what about like a Herschel Walker at Georgia? Me and Nick are both in the state of Georgia. What about Bo Jackson at Auburn? Like,
pretty good,
really good. And of course, me and Nick weren't around yet to watch any of those guys, but we watched some highlights of them, and we watched some of their NFL career. A little bit of it, even though we were young. But this is a very interesting list. I think that was a good way to start the show and good off-season top content. This is the only stuff that we can talk about during the off-season. And let's see next year at this time if they make this list. Let's see how it gets updated or changed. So now let's move on to current college football coaches. So ESPN ranked the top 10 coaches in the country. Kirby Smart 1, Ryan Day 2, Dabo 3, Marcus Freeman 4, Sark 5. did they get Sark? Or first of all, did they get this list right?
I think so. I do really like it. You have to lean towards Smart and Day being 1, 2. I might have Dabo 2 actually. Now that I'm saying it out loud, he's got more championships, more conference championships. So I'll go Smart 1. I think that makes sense to me. Dabo 2, Day 3, all fantastic coaches. And then the 4 through 8 range is very interesting, right? You have Marcus Freeman and Sark, who I think are right here with each other. Um, Freeman's got the edge because he made the title game before Sark, right? Sark's been coaching longer. And then Lanning and DeBoer, right? I almost have them like a little bit below. To me, it'd be like Marcus and Steve right here. Dan kind of on his own, just below them, just a tick, because he hasn't been able to do it in the postseason as much. And then DeBoer just a tick under that. Franklin, I don't know where he's at. I think this feels like a right spot for him. I really like the top 6. I think it's a right ranking and a ranking list that could move. Again, if this is 5 years ago, Dabo's easily number 1. Actually, Saban would be coaching, so Dabo would be number 2. But if this is before last season, before Ryan Day won a championship, he's probably number 4, number 3, right? Just dependent, because he loses to Michigan, but he's got his championship, so he's up there. So if Steve Sarkisian wants to jump into that top 3 conversation, he's got to win a national championship. I think that we all know that. No one below him has a national championship as a head coach. James Franklin made an appearance, but as you can see, they don't trust him to build a program as much as they do Marcus Freeman. So I'm taking Sarkisian to make that jump, and by next year he should be 4th. With nothing else really changing at the top. Again, I would have Dabo 2.
Okay, so I would have Ryan Day 2, even though it's very neck and neck between Ryan Day and Dabo, just because Ryan Day won a championship last year, and the odds were, after they losing to Michigan, the run that they made in the playoffs, how dominant, the Ohio State was in that entire run. Dabo at 3, just because he has 2 championships, and it looks like he made the playoffs last year. It looks like that he can make a big run this year because he has the roster and the returning talent. I would rank Sark above Marcus Freeman. Maybe that's just me. Marcus Freeman did make it to a national championship game, but just overall, I think Sark has, been a better coach. He's a better offensive coach than I think Marcus Freeman is a defensive coach. Even though I'm not taking anything away from Marcus Freeman, he's a hell of a coach, an awesome coach. I would send my son to go play for him because, what he stands for. I just think that, he started his career a little bit slowly, Marcus Freeman, but he continued to build up from the, they made the Fiesta Bowl in 2021, the Gator Bowl in 2022, the Sun Bowl in 2023, and then they made the jump. I just think Sark's trajectory has been a little bit better than Marcus Freeman. And I think that, Marcus Freeman has lost to some FCS teams in the past, Northern Illinois, another FCS team the year before. I think that if Sark can go further than Marcus Freeman this year, he could definitely jump him and even be knocking on the door with Dabo Swinney, even without a championship. But we mostly agree, with this list in the top 5. But I wanted to ask you, is there anybody in the top 10 that you think should not be on this list?
No, I think those are all the right coaches. I like them. I like the love to Matt Campbell. We know a few years ago the NFL was reaching out to him, and he stayed loyal and wanted to stay at Iowa State. Kyle Whittingham, we know he's a great coach at Utah. He's had a lot of success in the past couple of years. They've been down a little just because of injury. Cam Rising, a former Texas player, was on Utah and was a great player, but just kept getting hurt. I think this is the right list. I think this is a well done list. I was trying to think of guys that would just be on the outside. I think a guy that could crack the top 10 eventually will be Moore from Michigan if he keeps stacking up winning seasons. Obviously, he's only been there for 1 season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if he keeps stacking it up, that's a big conference. It's a big team. People care about Michigan. And he was vital in their championship run. So I think he could definitely be a guy that could jump into the top 10 after some years of some success.
For sure. So I like Kyle Whittingham, back-to-back Rose Bowls in 2021 and 2022.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
impressive.
Yeah.
He's known for his defense. I like the Matt Campbell should be on this list just because what he's done at Iowa State. They might be good again this year. Rocco Beck, their quarterback, is getting a lot of
Yep.
hype, but they
Yep.
lost two high NFL draft pick wide receivers, Jalen Noel, and then I forgot the other kid's name, but then Higgins, I
Yeah.
think. So let's
Yeah.
see how Rocco Beck, whether he was elevated because of those players or he can do the elevating this year. But Matt Campbell could coach, really well, and he's somebody that can make a high impact for Iowa State and win games for that program. So I'm going to disagree with you. I think a coach that is just knocking on the door. What about Josh Heupel at Tennessee? They run
Mm.
a great offense. They've been really close. They made the playoffs last year. They beaten Alabama. They beat Alabama last year. I know they've not been able to beat Georgia, but they've been really, really close. And it kind of hurt with him, the Nico situation, but he has a chance to
Yeah.
make this list if he can not only make the playoffs, but win a couple of games in the playoffs. Tennessee is not a national championship contender this year, but I think they can be a playoff team in the SEC. So look for the name Josh Heupel as a coach that I've always respected, and he's a really good offensive coach. He runs an up-tempo offense. It's really difficult to play against, but sometimes, as much as I like Josh Heupel as a coach, his up-tempo offense does not do his defense any favors sometimes, and that's been a contributing factor of why they've not been able to beat Georgia. But let's see if he can do it this year. So now let's move on to our next topic, and it is the 25 best non-quarterback players in college football. I think the obvious number one is Jeremiah Smith. Number two is Danny Dennis Sutton, defensive end from Penn State. Number three is Ryan Williams. Number four is Dylan Stewart. Number five is Caleb Downs. Anthony Hill is number seven, but he's the only Longhorn on this list. So let's talk about that. Should another Longhorn be included on this list? And if so, who do you think should be?
I think so. For me, it would be Colin Simmons. Do you get? I mean, Trey Wisner, I don't know if he's top 25, but he's probably in that top 40 range. I would say top 30, top 40 range. So I do think Colin Simmons should be on here. The top five is interesting. Jeremiah Smith, I think we agree, is number one. They also have the number 5 player in Caleb Downs. So we know Ohio State is going to be very good. It's interesting, though. It just goes to show the really, really good teams because this is not quarterback related at all, right? That's why there's no Arch. There's not other players because this is non-quarterbacks. And what you can notice about a lot of the teams in the top 10 or whatever are really good football teams. Ohio State, Penn State, Alabama, South Carolina, we think is going to be really good. Notre Dame, Texas, A&M, and Clemson. Most of those teams are probably going to have 10 wins that season, and it just goes to show. And a lot of them have multiple guys. Clemson's got multiple guys. We think Texas should have multiple guys. Penn State's got multiple guys in the top 15. So it's not just about the quarterback anymore. I do agree with the top 5. I think that's a solid top 5, but we should have another Longhorn in there, and I think his name is Colin Simmons.
I definitely agree with you, and I think Colin Simmons should even be ahead of Dylan Stewart from South Carolina. Dylan Stewart is known because he went off against that LSU team. That was one of the top games of the season last year. South Carolina or LSU at South Carolina. He had 8.5 sacks last year. Colin Simmons had 9 sacks, and if you look at all the statistics, he beats Dylan Stewart in pass rushing the quarterback, win rates on getting past the blockers, and he has better stats than Dylan Stewart. So I think Colin Simmons should be in the top 10. Maybe take Le'Veon Moss and A&M out, and then put Colin Simmons like at 8 or 9. And he can maybe even make the top 10 in this or top 5 of this list if he has 15 sacks like he thinks he can this year. If he has 15 sacks, he has a great chance to do so. Anthony Hill, I think, is at the right spot if we're just talking about Longhorns because he can rush the passer, stop the run. He's physical. He hits aggressively, and he's a very versatile player. He's our Swiss Army player on defense and will be a first-round pick if he continues to elevate his game. Looking at the top 5, I think that Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State, it's just a little bit of hype. He had 8.5 sacks last year, which is good. Don't get me wrong. That was good. Actually, I flipped the two. Dylan Stewart had 6.5 sacks last year. Number two, Dennis Sutton had 8.5 sacks. So I flipped them to Colin Simmons beat them all with 9 sacks, and somehow he's not on this list. He is getting the hype because Penn State, in their defensive end history, has had Micah Parsons drafted in the top 10, Abdul Carter drafted at number 2. So maybe he's next, But I watched Penn State games last year, and he was good, but he never jumped off my screen yet. But maybe it's just because he was behind some better players. So I think number 2 is a little bit rich because he's yet to prove himself. But I like the rest of the top 5. Jeremiah Smith, he's going to have a monster year. Caleb Downs is all over the football. Dylan Stewart, while he only had 6.5 sacks last year, he flashed the potential, the upside of the athleticism. And Ryan Stewart is still going to be one of the best players in college football. So overall, do you agree that if we had to do this list over next year, do you think Colin Simmons could be top 5 on this list if he gets 15 sacks, anywhere between 14 and 15 sacks?
Definitely. I definitely think he can crack this list. I also think Ryan Wingo can crack this list. He's a guy we've talked about compared to Ohio State and Alabama with Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. He hasn't gotten the opportunities because of a Matthew Golden, right? Because of an Isaiah Bond, right? So he was more of a receiver 3 or even 4 sometimes if you're throwing to Jaden Blue, if you're throwing it to Gunnar Helm. So he's the number 1 option this year. We're going to talk about that tight end that we're getting from Cal, but he still is going to be the guy. We're going to throw it to the running back. We're going to throw it to our tight ends. DeAndre Moore is going to get involved, but he's going to be treated like a receiver number 1 this year, just like Ryan Williams, just like Jeremiah Smith. So he's a guy that should elevate Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons should elevate himself. And then maybe even DeAndre Moore. Maybe I'm just too much of a Longhorn guy. But if he has another baller year, why can't he be towards the back half of that top 25 list? And this is non-quarterback, so obviously no Arch. So we're not going to see him in here, but I think it's possible. But I think Wingo and Simmons for sure in the top 25.
Wingo is going to be on this list. Even Auburn's Cam Coleman, he should be on this list as well. I was surprised.
Yes.
He was, I would say, after Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith as freshman wide receivers, Cam Coleman was probably number 3. So I think, he should have been on this list. I have another one. I like Peter Woods, number 10 with Clemson. He's a good defensive tackle. But what about Murad Watson, the Syracuse defensive tackle that we got from the portal? He could maybe make the top 15. He was a freshman All-American, and they said he's going to have a monster season. So maybe, we get another Texas player. But we'll see. I definitely think that Texas is going to be more represented on this list next year, especially after the season that we have. So after spring ball ended, On3 did a rankings of the top spring transfers in the country. So Nico going from Tennessee to UCLA coming 1, Jeremiah Wilson from U of H to Florida State coming 2, but Jack Endries, the Cal transfer, is on this list. So first of all, let me ask you about Nico. Do you agree that he should be number 1 on this list?
I do, but it's just because of impact. I'm not saying he's the best player. We know he's really good. We also know he has a lot of flaws, and UCLA has a lot of flaws themselves too. So we're not expecting like Heisman superstar Nico that we saw last year. That we saw a lot of great Nico, but we also saw a lot of bad Nico. And Tennessee, like you said earlier, their team is built to be an offensive dominant team. UCLA is still on that rebuilding phase. So it's not going to be the same Nico. He's got a lot of things to fix. But I do think he's number 1 just because of how polarizing it was. He's going to LA. He's leaving the SEC. So he would still be number 1 on this list because he is a very, very, very good player. And he's going to a rebuilding program. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game in year 1 as a Bruin.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be that good. They may just be fighting for bowl eligibility. And unless Nico really can improve on his throwing, I don't know how good the UCLA coaches are developing quarterbacks. I don't even know who their offensive coordinator is. So is
Yeah,
he going to take a step
it's
back and regress? And he wanted, he was making 4 million. He was making 2.5 million. He wanted 4 million. UCLA didn't give him 4 million. They're not even giving him the 2.5 million that he made at Tennessee. So how
right.
motivated is Nico going to be to play and improve his draft stock? We'll see. I guess, like Nick said, he said it correctly. He's a quarterback. He should be in his most impactful position on the field. He should be number one. But let me just give my thoughts about Jack injuries before I hand it back over to Nick. Jack Andrews can be the best tight end in college football. I know Luke Reynolds from Penn State is getting a lot of hype. A lot of people think that he can win the tight end award because Penn State is kind of tight end U, but Jack Andrews had such high impact at Cal, but it wasn't the impact that you think. He most of his passes weren't even over 20 yards. He just killed you on the crossing routes and the underneath stuff. And he has more speed than you think. He can break tackles. He's a great run blocker. He is exactly what the doctor ordered. He is going to be as good as Gunnar Helm, maybe even a notch above, and he's going to really make this tight end room even better than it is. I'm really excited for this, and he can be a one and done player at Texas because he can go be a high draft pick in the NFL. What are your thoughts about Jack Endries making this list?
Yeah, I mean, again, what we talked about just a few minutes ago, as far as Ryan Wingo not getting touches, a lot of that was because of a really good tight end named Gunnar Helm. And he's gone. He's on the Titans now, and you need to replace that. Arch is, very talented. We know that, but it's a young team, and you need some guys on the offensive line um, as receivers to step up and the tight end position. That could lead for a big year for Jack Injuries, a big year for Arch. You need that safety blanket. And we knew that Quinn's was Matthew Golden. We knew it was Jaden Blue or Trey Wisner dumping it off. But we also know it was the freaking tight end. He loved Gunnar Helm, and they had a close relationship off the field. So we could definitely see that with Arch and Jack. So I think that'll be a great fit. A new quarterback. He's not new. He's been there, but this is the year for Arch. Do you need your safety blankets? And you need a tight end. You need someone to dump it off to, someone to help you block. Those guys are often called the quarterback on the field. That's not the quarterback, right? Because they tend to know a lot. They can block and do all this stuff. So I think he's going to be excited. He's going to be rejuvenated. Again, coming from a rebuilding program, coming to Texas. So playing with Arch, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we'll see a lot of touchdowns from Mr. Jack.
Oh, we definitely will. He's going to be another player that Longhorns fans are going to get very acclimated to, and he's going to bring that swagger in the tight end room. A couple of other shout-outs I want to give on this list. Huge addition by LSU, A.J. Holsey. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. LSU's biggest weakness was their secondary, and Holsey, even though he was on Houston, statistically he was one of the better safeties in the country. So let's see. That's a huge addition for LSU. Bo Atkinson is a high-level pass rusher that transferred from UNC to Ohio State. The rich keep getting richer, so that's a good one. And a player that we're going to see a lot as Texas fans, Jaden Ott. He transferred from Cal to Oklahoma. I didn't watch many Cal games. The two main ones I watched were against Miami and Stanford. He showed a lot of potential, a lot of flash. He has a chance to be OU's starting running back, and he can take a lot of weight off John Mateer. So Jaden Ott's a player that we're going to see a lot, Texas fans. And, of course, Georgia, they're getting the Army transfer, Ela Madozi. A lot of Georgia fans think that he can help them because as well as Georgia was on the defensive line, they lost a lot, and let's see if they can replace that. So some interesting names on this list. But, again, we wanted to give a special shout-out to Jack Injuries, who we are very excited about as Texas fans. So our last topic of this episode is the on-3 impact top college football players. Again, this list may not be the best players in college football, but the players that will have the most impact. Jeremiah Smith at 1, Dylan Stewart at 2, Caleb Downs at 3. There's our boy Colin Simmons at 4, and Sam Levitt at 5. Do you agree with this list?
Yeah, I like the way that you indicated that this is impact, not necessarily the best players. And with that in mind, I do agree. Sam Levitt at number 5 to me is extremely interesting. Obviously Cam Scatterbo is gone. He's on the Giants. What does that offense look like, right? Their coach was talking about how they want to build their program. And this is how you do it. You're going to lose guys every year. That's just the way it goes, either through transfer, graduation, through the draft, whatever. How does Sam Levitt perform, right? Why Ryan Williams? Alabama needs a big year. DeBoer needs a big year. This is how you do it. You feed the beast. You feed him. 3 Longhorns on here. You got Arch. Obviously, that's massive. You took over Quinn, who really took our program to the next level. He could be this good, and that has so much impact on our team if he's like this, like especially quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
That's my only surprise is there's not more quarterbacks on this list, like DJ Lagway. Like, he could literally cost the Florida's coach his job if he's not good this year. And then Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, of course, they're 1-3. I mean, they just won a national championship, being some of the best players in the country. They're the most impactful and the best. That's crazy that they're on the same team. So, yes, and I like the way you prefaced again that it's not necessarily, Lenore Sellers is the 8th best player, but no, he's on a damn good Carolina team, and they can make a little run here, and it's mostly because of Mr. Sellers in Columbia.
Thank you for that segue, Nick. As much as I love Lenore Sellers, he should be higher. He should be at number 4. So it should be Jeremiah Smith, in my opinion, Caleb Downs at 2, Colin Simmons at 3, Lenore Sellers at 4. And because I just think the whole Carolina offense relies upon Lenore Sellers. He makes their offense goes because just of his playmaking ability with his legs opens up the running game. It opens up the passing game. It brings extra guys in the box because he's another running back. And what does that cause? It caused one-on-one matchups, and Lenore Sellers is accurate enough. He's more accurate than Jalen Milroe. I don't want you to think compare the two. He is a more accurate player than Jalen Milroe, and even Nico, he can make them pay. So I just think Colin Simmons should be above Dylan Stewart. He had more sacks. He had a better overall statistical season in different categories. Pass rush win rate, getting to the quarterback, amount of quarterback pressures. He would have had more sacks if he did not play along underneath such great players. Like Dylan Stewart started since his freshman year. Colin Simmons' snaps increased as the season went on. So this is going to be a big year to see who's better. But right now, I would put Colin Simmons above Dylan Stewart. Love Caleb Downs, even though he's a safety. He's all over the field. He could stop the run. He has great ball skills. He's physical. He's a prototypical safety that you want. Sam Levitt, this is a big year for the Arizona State Sun Devils because they went from being the hunter to now they're the hunted. They're circled because they are the Big 12 champs and they made it to the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. So teams are going to be up ready to play against them. How big of a season does Sam Levitt have? He does have his wide receiver back, number 1 wide receiver in Jordan Tyson, but I want to see how Arizona State, is able to get over all the losses that they had on both sides of the football. So last thing before we end, a lot of, Jeremiah Smith is a name that a lot of college football fans know, but even just the casual watchers of college football are hearing about. Do you believe that he'll live up to the hype and have even a better sophomore year than a freshman year?
Well, he'll be getting a new quarterback. So that'll be interesting. It might be the level that everyone's thinking just because year 1 was amazing. So it might take time to work with, your second quarterback in college. But ultimately, yeah, this guy is not just a, jitterbug once in a, one season flash type of guy. This guy is electric. He's huge, speed, great hands, athletic, could do all kinds of stuff. And you don't realize how big he is until you see him next to like a regular sized person. He's massive. So yeah, I think he'll have probably an even more impactful year 2. Numbers might be a slight touchdown, but that doesn't mean he's not as impactful. Just because guys know who he is, right? So I think he'll have an awesome year. It just might take him some time to gel with his new quarterback, and The sky's the limit for him. He's going to be a top 5 pick. He could go right now and be a beast. So yeah, he'll be good. He just might take some time. It's because everybody knows him and everyone has film on him, but he's still going to be a monster.
He's going to be a monster. And the crazy part is, ladies and gentlemen, he's only a true sophomore. And those of you that are not familiar with college football know that you have to play 3 years of college football to even go to the draft. So he's not even eligible for the draft after this year, which is insane. He's usually you don't hear a lot about wide receivers being hyped up. It's usually quarterbacks, but he is the best player out of any position in college football, not just because they won the championship, but just the impact that he's had. At Ohio State, they're known as being wide receiver U. And what does this guy do? He starts day one as a true freshman. I know ESPN ranked him the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school, but still, it's usually an acclimation process, especially when you go to a big university like Ohio State. He was playing with Emeka Buga, Carnell Tate. Like, he was playing with some stud wide receivers, but he was just the top of the class. And he's going to see a lot of double teams. He's going to see a lot of safeties, lean over to whatever side of the field that he's on. So he may not have the stats that he did last year. Like last year, he had 1,315 yards on 76 receptions and 15 touchdowns. He may not have that, but whenever a big play is needed, they're going to throw it to Jeremiah Smith. And I just want to say, as a Longhorn fan, Nick, he had his worst game against the Longhorns in the semifinals, and that just shows you how great Ohio State was, where they still had enough wide receivers and they were still able to move the football. So Jeremiah Smith deserves to be number 1, and he's going to make a lot of SportsCenter top 10 plays this year. Whether or not Ohio State wins the championship, it's still determined, but Jeremiah Smith is definitely going to be a fun player to watch. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media channels. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. We're definitely going to have more off-season content. We're going to be back next week. But until then, again, best of luck to the softball team in the finals. And hopefully next time we're talking, they win the championship. But we'll see you next time, and thank you again. Hook up.